Hello artists! Today I'm going to show you how to use our drawing studio. The first thing I did was I grabbed a paper plate, which is our shopping tray, and then I grabbed a piece of paper underneath that table. Next I started walking around and grabbing supplies. You can see right now I'm ripping out a coloring sheet. You may take one coloring sheet per class. In our drawing studio, we have pens, pencils, oil pastels, markers, Sharpies, crayons. Right there, I just grabbed a texture rubbing plate, a tracer, and I'm grabbing some reference images on the other side. I'm also grabbing a drawing book. I decided I wanted to take a Machines drawing book, which is labeled with a red piece of tape on the side. Next, I went back to my seat and I started using my supplies. Right here you can see I'm using my coloring sheet. Remember, you can only take one. Then I wanted to show you I also grabbed an idea drawing sheet. This says, what is it? You may also only take one of these per class. I started with the circle and I decided I wanted to make some strange looking glasses with one big and one little. Next, I grabbed a how-to drawing book. I was looking at these cars to draw and I was flipping through the drawing book to see what step to start with. You'll see these drawing books are really helpful when learning how to draw complicated things. It always starts by breaking down the drawing into shapes. I decided I didn't want to draw a car, so I put it off to the side. If you do this in the classroom, just put it back and use the materials that you would like to use. Next, I used my tracer to trace around this hot air balloon. But instead of making it a typical hot air balloon, I decided to make an owl hot air balloon. I started to add my own details with a pencil. Anytime I start with a drawing, I like to start with a pencil and an eraser because sometimes I make mistakes and I would like to erase it. I wait for color and more permanent things like Sharpie until I feel confident about my drawing. Notice how I'm sketching. I'm not pushing hard with my pencil. I'm drawing light lines to make sure I like it the way that I'm creating it. When I start to draw the owl, I leave my reference image right on the side and I start with the basic shapes. I was looking at the shape of the nose and tried to copy that onto my paper. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect. I'm doing my best to do observational drawing and look at something and try and recreate it on my piece of paper. After I feel good about my drawing, I grab a Sharpie and trace over my drawing. You don't have to do this. It's just something I like to do. It helps my drawing stand out when I start to add color. I picked up a variety of drawing materials to demonstrate how you can use some of these tools. I started with a purple colored pencil to show you how you can use a colored pencils on the side to create really light marks. But then you can also use the tip of your pencil to make really dark, thin lines. For my next drawing tool, I picked up a marker. I am not coloring it in perfectly because I already know that you know how to use your marker and try and fill in the lines. I am just coloring in small parts because I wanted to show you a process of using the marker and then using water to add different shades and tints of that color. So I'm trying to create some value in the feathers. Here I'm using my water cup and brush to add some color into my background, but it'll be a lighter purple and that water will help spread that washable marker around to make these purple feathers look a little more realistic. For my next drawing material, I am using an oil pastel and I'm using different amounts of pressure. I'm pushing hard to get dark lines and lighter to get lighter lines. I also use my finger to smudge and smear it. Now I'm using a pen and I'm showing you some cross hatching. So I'm drawing lines and crossing them over top of each other, kind of like an X, to make these ropes look a little more realistic. Next, I grabbed my blue highlighter, when this is in the Sharpie highlighter section, and I just quickly filled in my basket blue. I didn't think it had as much value as the other areas, so I went back to my colored pencil and colored over top of the markers. I often like to use markers with crayons or colored pencils to layer and get different colors. Using my creative artistic skills, I'm making my own new colors. I'm even going over the pen a little bit to add some colors and really make this thing all blend together. I grabbed my pen again and I decided to do some more of that cross hatching on the beak to give a nice shadow to my beak. Also, you can draw really lightly with pens by not pressing very hard. You can see right here I was thinking about going back to my blue highlighter, but I decided I hadn't used my crayon yet, and I wanted to show you how you can use a crayon. We've been using crayons for a long time. Here I am lightly coloring with the crayon by not pushing very hard on my paper. I'm trying to be very, very light and barely touch the paper with my crayon. When I want the color to be darker, I push harder to get a darker shade on my picture. So up there on the top, I'm pushing harder to fill in those feathers on the top of the owl's head. When I'm all done coloring, I like to go back over with my eraser and erase any pencil lines that were still showing up. For the background, I decided to use a texture plate. How you use a texture plate is you select one and put it underneath your paper. The trick is you have to hold it still. So I'm going to take one hand and hold it still while I use a crayon to color in the other side. Crayons work best with texture rubbings, but if you're very lightly using the side of an oil pastel, like I'm about to do here, you can layer over top and get some nice texture that way too. With the texture rubbing, I love to layer colors, to make new colors and create some really interesting backgrounds or ways to color my picture. The final step is I decided to do some lines. Drawing artists always like to use lines and shapes to create their drawings. Enjoy! I can't wait to see what you create in the drawing studio.